Good morning and welcome to Raw Vlog number 43. Raw Vlogs are normally recorded in front of a live steering wheel on my way to getting coffee. This clearly is a special edition of the Raw Vlog. It's a special socially distanced edition. I'm going to have to change that term because that's a tongue twister. But as current events are, as they are, we are not going to get coffee this morning. We are cloistered in the house, technically in the garage right now. This will be like this for a while, probably going forward. The nice thing about this is when I have the opportunity, it makes it a lot easier to have guests on the Raw Vlog. And today we do have a guest, and that guest is Wabam! Matt Palmer. If you've been around my MTB ALAN channel a while, you know that Matt Palmer has been very influential to me in my mountain biking life. I love Matt because we have a lot of overlap in our personalities and interests, but there's enough of that Venn diagram that falls outside of my understanding where I'm constantly going like, hey, and always finding Matt really interesting. Matt's one of those people who in his mountain biking life has been what I would call a real mountain biker. He's run the gamut of everything from being an XC racer to a soul surfer on single track, maintaining his local trails, being an advocate, and also even helping out local organizations with stuff. So I wasn't really going to give you an intro, but that's the intro. Matt, is there anything you want to add to that before we get into our questions?
No, I think that's it. I think, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. This socially distanced kind of thing screws up my routine a little bit. I'm usually in a parking lot getting coffee right now as well after climbing for a little bit. So it's nice to get out and do this.
Right on. Well, so this viewers and listeners, this is a new format for me. We're in an interview style right now, and I've set up a sort of outline to help us have a little bit of structure to get to know our guest. And today we're going to be getting to know Matt through a series of questions. We do have some particular things we want to talk about today. And the stuff we want to talk about today is public lands and what is the deal with that. I know I have a lot of questions about that. Matt has been researching more of that recently. But before we get to that, let's jump into our questions. You know, I'm going to do something really quick. I'm going to just go off the cuff right now because normally Raw Vlog has a couple of segments.
Okay.
And one of them is channel news. So we're just going to make it life news right now because my channel is kind of about my life. Is there anything new going on in your life right now, Matt, other than what you were just talking about?
No, I think definitely there's newness every day, right? Like I think what you can get at the grocery store is usually the thing that's the most new.
There's bagels today.
Pretty much, typical life here. Definitely some curveballs with everything that's going on, just some new routines for sure. Every time I interact with society, it feels like a very weird aura going on right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, it's been getting rides in. Like I went to Santiago Oaks last weekend, and it was really interesting watching people trying to maintain 6 feet and having people not carrying, and it was just really interesting. So yeah, I know that they shut down the trailheads. I said in an interview with somebody else on our interview on the Shut Up and Ride interview, I actually said that the trails were closed, and I'd like to correct that right now, that the trails are not closed. That's like going to be dependent on the individual land manager at that point. But the trailheads are closed to vehicle access, to car access.
Yeah.
As far as the channel, my channel, we're going to be having on the MTB ALAN channel. You can click. I keep forgetting where the link is. It's way over there. Point over there for me, Matt.
Which one? I see kind of your sticker. No, other way.
Oh yeah, that way. Yeah.
It depends on what you set it. It's like flip sometimes too, your camera. Like sometimes it's like,
yeah. So it's over there. Click up there. That's my MTB ALAN channel. And we're going to be doing, I'm not really sure. We're going to be doing the 510 trail cross shoe up there. So yeah, that's that. Stoke of the week. What are you stoked about this week, Matt? I'm going to just throw you right into it.
Man, I think this week I'm stoked about reserving some camp spots for the fall.
Nice.
We're kind of getting into that. I hope I don't like make a mad rush or anything, but like we're kind of getting into that like September, October timeline right now for reserving camp spots, and things fill up pretty quick around here. So I'm pretty excited about like kind of, I need a silver lining, and a lot of those have been just evaporated with recent events. So I'm kind of looking forward to like, wow, okay, cool. 6 months from now, hopefully this will all be over and get that camp spot, Joshua Tree or wherever I'm trying to go. So
right on. Are they allowing, like they're letting you book it?
Yeah, you can book it for sure. I think they'll always take your money, right? And they'll figure it out later. So, but yeah, I'm stoked about that. That's pretty little. I mean, it's not really like mountain biking kind of stuff. I'm also actually pretty stoked on our trails have gotten really good around here, like some recent storms. We have snow on the ground right now, but I think it's going to be gone by the weekend. And I'm pretty excited about kind of getting some rides in on some packed dirt. So
I might see you from 6 feet away this weekend.
Come on up. Yeah, we can. Yeah. We need like a mic system like those motorcycle riders, right? Like they got to figure it out. They're always 6 feet apart. And they have a helmet. Yeah. Is that going to happen for mountain bikes, right? Like
a full,
like it should.
I could see it. I could totally see it.
Yeah. Because like roadies, they got to figure it out. They can kind of chit chat and do their little thing. But like mountain bikers are always like kind of in line and doing stuff. So
yeah. I don't know, man. I'm always like screaming, and I don't know if my my buddies, maybe if there was like a little access trigger on the thing, you could like turn your mic on and off. Yeah.
Right. I like that.
Okay. All right, cool. So we're going to start with our series of kind of subject or bullet points to help us get to know Matt a little bit better. So we're going to get into the who dis. We already kind of did an intro. So I sent Matt a series of bullet points, and I asked him to give me 3 to 5 milestones in his mountain biking life.
Yes.
And go.
Okay. So yeah, I think this is actually pretty cool because I had to reach back quite a bit. My mountain biking career, so to speak, started kind of when like mountain biking hit the mainstream. If you're a kid of the 90s, you kind of remember when like all these active, crazy sports got bigger and more expensive, you know, like mountain biking, snowboarding, like everything kind of hit like mainstream a bit. And so, you know, as like a junior higher, I got my first mountain bike, and I grew up kind of around hills. And so it's just a natural kind of fit of like, you know, my personality to like go higher, faster. And a lot of the times, like, I don't really know how this was possible for my parents to have this kind of threshold, but like I was on my own a lot, and I just kind of rode in the hills, like even at night and during like really dark times of day. And I would just go and just cruise. And anyway, it was a good outlet for me. Like my kind of second milestone, flash forward probably like 20 years. I played soccer all through college, didn't really have a bike through college. And then kind of saw that run out as far as like, you know, being an adult and trying to play in adult leagues with people that are like hungover, and being the guy that like shows up kind of ready to go and having to run a whole lot more than everybody else and not having any subs. Like it gets old, and like having a desk job that like doesn't really get you the intensity and fitness for soccer games. So
it's funny how being fit makes your life so that you get fitter.
It does, yeah. And just the personality of like I'm committed to this thing, you know, like I'm gonna be there, I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna like do that kind of stuff. So anyway, so like right around my 30s, I remember just like, okay, I need to like start doing some solo sports. And soccer is not a solo sport. You need people to kind of show up and do things, even indoor, which is, yeah. So I kind of just went self-reliant for a little bit and just started running, and that was cool. But, you know, running on streets and stuff, like it's just more about time and those kind of things than it was about like real enjoyment. And so
I'm meaning getting in your reps. Is that what you mean? Like when you say it's about time?
Yeah, it's about time. It's about like, oh, okay, I heard like a sub 130 half marathon's a good time. Like, let's try to do that, you know, let's match that or whatever. But it wasn't really cool. Like I just, you know, running on streets and pounding pavement and kind of like, I mean, as much as like I had really cool spots to run, it wasn't like that freeing feeling I got from mountain biking early in life when I can just go and not see anybody for a long time. And my only limitation was me. It wasn't like if I can hit a stop sign or those kind of things. So I think like where I picked up mountain biking again, actually I know when I picked up mountain biking again, kind of in a little way, was I started commuting to work. I was in Orange County and it took me about an hour to go 10 miles. And I started doing the math. I'm like, I could probably beat that on a bike. And so, so I got my old bike back from my brother. It was sweet. It was an Alpine Stars aluminum bike from the 90s, elevated chainstay, which is crazy for like mid 90s. And so, you know, chain doesn't slap, you know?
Yeah.
And Alpine Stars making bikes, which is just like weird, right? But I got this bike from my brother, put some slicks on it, and just started bombing to and from work. And that's kind of when I started riding bikes again. Got a road bike from a friend, really nice road bike, and rode the wheels off that thing. But it wasn't when I think when I started going back over to mountain bikes is one, like, I think road biking for me was just like the consequences were too big. You just see the news of people just kind of losing when they get in altercations with cars, either just verbal, just kind of yelling, or people, harassing you or cutting you off, or those kind of things. And the culture kind of didn't really fit. I like the guys I was riding with, but like, I'm kind of like a happy trail guy or happy, like outdoor kind of guy, like waving, high fives.
Happy trail, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Happy tap. Anyway, so
yeah, totally. I know that about you.
That's kind of like, that's just me. And I feel like every time I was like going down like PCH or something and like, you know, waving at some guy on the other side of the street, like on a road bike, you get nothing back. Like you get absolutely nothing back. It's as if I was driving like a old Tacoma and this guy was like in a Lamborghini or something. Like those two people are not going to be waving to each other, you know. So anyway, that's PCH situation for you probably. But anyway, so like I feel like I was just kind of always gravitating towards mountain bikes. And then I actually was just talking about this with a buddy that was a roadie. And he worked at a bike shop. He's like, dude, we got this Cannondale head shock bike hanging in the repair area. That's like, the owner will sell it to you for $100. I said, yeah, cool. $100. It's great. So I bought this thing because my Alpine Stars had a cracked head tube, couldn't ride it anymore. So I grabbed this thing from his repair thing, and it was like a brand new bike to me because I'd never seen like a modern mountain bike. But mind you, it had like still like a springy, like one little like spring in the head shock. If you ever see a head shock Cannondale, just like look it up. It's like the cheesiest thing ever. But I rode it and I raced it for a long time. That's like right when Over the Hump started working, kind of coming up and all those kind of things. So I started getting into racing in that community. And so anyway, that was kind of my second milestone, was like just getting that bike. My third one was like total game changer with my friend James. We were out riding and he just got a brand new single speed 29er. And this was like 2010. And we traded bikes, like just real quick, right? And I rode his bike and I seriously yelled at him that he was cheating because it was so smooth. It was so nice. It like the geometry felt like normal, and he was riding my bike and he was scared, like my head shock bike, and he was scared for his life. He's just like, dude, like, so we traded about like 10 yards later, but that like changed me. Like he since like, you know, kind of like gave up that bike. I bought it off him. I still have that bike today. And that was like a huge milestone for me. It's like a modern mountain bike that climbs, snappy, rolls over anything, fast, like that changed it. Like, because I was used to mountain bikes that, like, you know, you had to kind of feel it and you're kind of just getting killed. So that was a major milestone for me. I raced that bike, rode that bike for a long time. I won a state championship back in like 2012, and that was like kind of the apex of my racing. That same year, I did another ride up to Yosemite from Orange County, an unsupported ride up the aqueduct, and that was really like, that's what changed I think my approach to cycling a lot, not just mountain biking, but to cycling. And that, like, there's this whole like self-supported kind of vibe that I really dug. It was like backpacking, getting out there, but then also like putting stuff on a bike, and like, that's what you got. And you can go more than 10 miles a day. So that was kind of a big change for me. It was like that whole transition.
Can you give me like mileage for that ride?
I don't know. I feel like it was like maybe close to 400. We kind of went kind of circuitous, but I think it was about that. The real like challenge to that was just like, you're not supposed to ride on the aqueduct. So like there's like stuff you had to lift things over, and like just crazy obstacles for that. So like, but I just remember
like
that,
plus a trailer, right? Like,
yeah. And for me, I had like, you know, panniers and stuff like that on a cross bike, drop bars kind of thing, but like going down fire roads and like very much like dirt kind of mixed kind of terrain. But
people call that gravel riding.
Yeah, I guess they do now.
But this is like epic.
This is definitely gravel. Yeah, this is definitely like every day is an epic. And like kind of my pinnacle for that trip was like coming through into the valley of Yosemite and on a bike, right? Just like the most torn up roads, and everybody else is like kind of bound by these cars and like these things they have to like find a parking space for, and then everybody gets out and take pictures. So like I could stop anywhere, which is rad. You know, I want to stop here, I want to stop there, but like everybody else had to be like kind of in the flow of traffic and stuff. So like that whole experience for me was like definitely liberating, like just my way I experience the outdoors and the way I interact with things, which is like, I want to be able to like just experience whatever comes up. And maybe that's like the big, like, you know, points of interest that everybody has and on their list, and they want to like take pictures of and throw it on their social channel and share it with everybody. But like, for me, it's just like, oh, that's a really cool thing. Let me just go look at that. And for me, like, that's a bike. Like, you know, you can cover the ground. For me, like for like hiking or like those kind of things, they're just a little too slow for me. Typically, I heard somebody say once that hiking is just walking.
Yeah, that'd be my wife. Like, Kelly, as soon as she got on a mountain bike, she no longer wanted to hike because hiking is just walking.
It's just walking.
As a note, let me jump in here. This is the conversation that you and I had.
Yeah.
That got me into mountain biking because I had been a hiker, had lost kind of the ability to do that, and really didn't have a lot of time in my weekends and whatnot.
Yeah.
And also Kelly didn't like hiking, but this is like, I love hearing this again because this is really what like.
Yeah. It's just like, it's such a cool mode of travel, and I'm sure I'm saying the thing that a million other people have said, but it's just such a cool way to get out. And I feel like the mountain bike and what it's become as far as like current geometries and like, you know, there's bikes that people like make now that you can load a ton of stuff on, you know, like that's just cool. You know, before you had to like kind of figure it out and kind of make your own thing. But now it's like, it's just so, you know, it's just so cool that you can get that kind of like setup that you just minimal impact, super efficient, and you can go so far on a day and feel refreshed and just see so much stuff along the way. So,
yeah.
Anyway,
I'm gonna consider that ride up to the Hetch Hetchy.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm gonna consider that your remarkable ride because that's one of the things we're talking about.
Yeah.
Unless I have another one.
Yeah, no, that is for sure. I like that question though too, because I had to reach back like kind of recent history. And my recent remarkable ride is I was on my birthday and I camped out down at El Moro, and I only brought one bike, which never bring one bike to like a multi-day thing. And my back brake fried, like absolutely fried. And I was on the top of lizards at El Moro, and I was with like a bunch of buddies, and I wasn't going to turn around. So like I went down lizards with the front brake only.
Wow.
And so that was like,
you still probably beat my time on that trail.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but it was remarkable that I made it, and definitely a good way to like bump into my 40s. Was like, okay, cool. Like, you're not going to die today.
That's awesome. Cool, man. That's rad.
Yeah.
Do you have a must ride destination, like one place, if you were to pick one
that I've ridden, that I've experienced?
Yeah, or either could be one that you've ridden and you know, or one that you feel like you haven't done that you really need to do before you sign out.
Yeah, I think it's as cliche as it is. My time in Seattle, I feel like, was just epic. And the rides that I got to do there, the trails I got to do there, I had an appreciation when I got there for what they were. But now moving back to Southern California, not saying that the trails down here are terrible at all, but like there's just so much good stuff up there. And so I would say for someone that's wanting to get like some super remarkable stuff in, I think I haven't been to Tiger Mountain in like 5 years now, but I've heard that they've just been hammering on that spot. It's such a big area, good terrain. There's something for everybody. And I think another reason why I think it's remarkable is that there's the vibe. For me, like I still like, and we'll probably get into this in a little bit for like access and things like that, but I still like things you have to pedal up. And I still like things that like, you know, there's a XC trail that has like a drop in it or has like some weird, crazy like feature that you're not ready for. And I like that about Tiger Mountain. Like, and that about a local else too. Like Alan knows this, but like if you shut your brain off and just think you're gonna like you know, think about something else while you're riding, you're gonna get in trouble. And I like those kind of trails that like they actually demand a lot of your focus, a lot of your attention, and want you to engage, which is great. I mean, not to simplify it, but otherwise go ride a road bike, you know, like if you want to just zone out.
Or a gravel.
Or a gravel bike. Well, gravel, you have to engage too. But maybe a Peloton.
Yeah.
Maybe just jump on a Peloton and
do
and then
Zwift.
you can zone out. Yeah. So anyway, Seattle, Tiger Mountain, those kind of places. Bellingham, I had a rad couple days up in Bellingham. Just this town and the community. I think all that goes with it. But yeah, Seattle for me was pretty cool that way, as far as like good trail network, good maintenance, great people. Yeah.
Cool. So I think like you're talking about land management and stuff like that, which really is a nice segue into why we're here.
Yay.
So Matt and I had been just kind of chatting a little bit, and I think the concept, like right now, I think it's pretty relevant because what we're talking about is pretty relevant because a lot of people are trying to get outdoors, get out into public parks and whatnot. And I know for me, I have never really understood what is the difference between a national park, a national monument, and a national nature wildlife reserve, and then there's like state parks, and then there's all these different designations. I think they all Bureau of Land Management, BLM stuff, and I don't know what any of it means. And I know you've been doing some reading and kind of getting up to speed a little bit more on these, and that's really what we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. I think like in my journey for this, I think for most of mountain biking, I never really considered this kind of thing. Like you just hear about a trail, show up with your bike and ride it. And you definitely, I think, appreciate a really well-managed trail versus a not managed trail, or a well thought out trail as far as like, if you're a new person there, like signage or just the little things of like, oh, cool, somebody actually built a bridge here, so I don't have to like hike across the swamp. Like there's those little things that like, I feel like we kind of take for granted sometimes. And at least I did. And I think, what kind of got me to kick over to the other side of like actually considering this stuff and getting a little bit more educated and I guess more involved in a lot of ways, is I moved up to a pretty remote area up in Southern California, the San Bernardino Mountains, more specifically Angeles Oaks, which is really close to a stretch of trail I think it's about like almost close to 30 miles of single track, which stretches a really long way. It's called the Santa Ana River Trail. And when I say single track, I mean single track. Like if there's two people trying to pass one another, someone has to stop and let the other person by. Like it's exposure, it's wild, it's really like technical riding. Anybody can do it, but it's technical and it demands a lot from you. But I moved here about 4 years ago and I started riding local trails that when I was talking about growing up and that mountain bike I had, I actually was out here and riding at night with, random group of guys called the Rut Riders. They come out every Wednesday and ride this trail, my little post office loop here. And so now I'm back and I kind of looked at these trails and some of them were in disrepair. They're like trees down for like months on end. And I was just like, what is the deal? I have a saw at home. I have a shovel at home. Like, I just want to go do stuff. But, kind of the spidey sense in me knows that that's national forest and you don't mess with that. Like somebody else is managing that property. They probably want to know if you're doing that because you're on someone else's property. It's just like if you're on your neighbor's property, there's liabilities if you hurt something while you're on their property. So same concept, right? So it took me almost a year to figure out who I could talk to and to actually put shovel to ground, which that was a long path journey for me, and like way too long, I think, for anybody that's interested and really motivated. Shouldn't have to wait a year to figure this stuff out. So anyway, it was a good long learning process of like, okay, it's national forest. Okay, there's different districts in the national forest. All right, there's different rangers that have jurisdiction over the national forest, but they can't give you a ticket and they don't enforce it. That's the right. Sheriff, and so you start going through like, okay, cool. So there's this person that's supposed to be maintaining this, but they're not because they're gutted. I mean, they have, especially for interfaces or boundaries that butt up to very big populations like our area. They have to worry about like, cleaning bathrooms, graffiti, all this stuff for people that come up and just kind of, maybe not have the awareness of like maintaining the space. They're just kind of like, hey, this is just another public park. And so, those rangers and people are busy, super busy, even with volunteers of like that kind of stuff. Trails really do fall by the wayside and only really impact a small number of the population, where those other picnic areas and things, those are things that impact a pretty large area or large population. So I get it. But it's still frustrating. To not be able to all this like energy of like, oh, let's go do something to like do it. And so I started really kind of getting to know a lot of people and the ins and outs of this just by my own, trying to figure this out. Eventually got to a place where I could talk to actually have an email for my district ranger now. And I can talk to him and say, hey, like, I'm going to go do this thing. What do you think? And he says, cool, go do that thing. And so that's the relationship I have now, but it was a long path to that. And it's made me really appreciate those trails I ride that are really well maintained, good signage, things like that. I also had the opportunity at my past job to talk to a lot of landowners. I was going through this idea of crowdsourcing data for inventory of trails, which trail inventory for kind of, not like, kind of speak or, kind of land management speak is like inventory would be like, okay, there's 5 trees down, or there's this area that needs to be patched or rebenched, or this whole area needs to be redone. That's like an inventory of like, okay, here's the stuff that we need to do. And that typically goes into a backlog of sorts. So if you're ever reading through like any of the press releases or things from National Forest, you'll see that they have a backlog. And that is pretty daunting at this point in our current times, as far as administrations and things like that. Their backlog is just unprecedented because they're getting gutted with all these, basically budget cuts and things like that. So I did this one app that was like basically crowdsourcing the inventory. And so you could go out with your device and just basically post to Strava, and we could tell at some level if where you were stopping and trying to see if that was abnormal and attribute that to maybe a problem, and then have somebody go look and see if it's actually a problem. So if there wasn't like local people going up and down 30 miles of single track all the time to be able to give you these inventories, we're trying to do it kind of digitally and crowdsource. So cool. So that's kind of how I like started to learn a little bit more about this stuff, was basically just calling around to like, Santa Cruz Trails Foundation, to our local one here, which is like pretty big for the San Gabriels, trying to call these different people and talk to these people and say, hey, like, would you use this kind of thing? And getting kind of interest that way, and just hearing their stories and their frustrations and things like that, as far as like, trail usage and that kind of stuff. So, all the way from like not knowing what to do to trying to actually like go to the other side and help these people, because there's technology, like it's not about like rounding up a bunch of people at the local grocery store anymore, or liquor store. It's like we have so much technology now that we can do this stuff. Yeah. Like, why not use it? So,
so you really took ownership of your local trails, and that actually kind of expanded out even all the way up to Big Bear, right? Because they were using your stuff. And I think part of kind of what's underlying that is that in essence, in reality, you are part owner of those lands, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so and that's true of any, but that's true of any U.S. citizen, right?
Correct.
We all have some stake, or we all partly own public lands,
right?
And that all applies to national forests or national lands. Does it apply also to like BLM and like state stuff? Like, how does that work?
It does. Yeah, it does. I mean, there's always fees and things that you're going to have to pay, right? Like, you don't have to pay to get into your house. That's kind of the difference.
I don't know. You've met Kelly.
Exactly. I know. What do you have to bring? It's like bring home the groceries, right?
Yeah, bring home. I gotta make sure the coffee's made.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, I guess there is a fee. But yeah, I think that's the difference, though, for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole idea, right, behind these public lands, is that they are something that we as a society, we as a nation own, collectively own,
right,
and is available to us, right? It's like, I think especially right now, I think this is always true, but I think especially right now when stress is high, and especially when we're kind of we're so locked into these little screens and medium-sized screens and even big screens, but we need these things to kind of refresh ourselves and remind ourselves where we come from and put ourselves into perspective. And our public lands, our national forests and stuff are there for us for that. I know, like, it's even been said that, like, for some people, they may never even get to see the Grand Canyon but simply knowing that it is there, untouched, and doing its thing, doing what nature does without a human hand affecting it, is a huge like emotional, psychological, soul resource for us, as well as like creating a lot of jobs and stuff.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you hit upon a couple different things. Like one is definitely like the public ownership of these lands. It's pretty special as far as what we have.
No other country,
not as much as we do, for sure.
What is it? 640 million acres.
Yeah.
Which is like Germany times 7.
Yeah, that's
6
crazy.
or 7, right? That's how much land we have.
That's insane. Yeah, for sure. And I think that like that's a pretty crazy thing. And I think like as far as like the ownership of it, like we all own these lands. You go to a different state, you're still an owner. Across this whole country, you can go to different parks and things, and you're part of that system and part of that like usage of those things and reinforcing that. But it's basically there's kind of those distinctions that are at the federal level. So like BLM, National Forest Service, National Park Service, which is a little different. But it's kind of funny. It's a fascinating history when you start going through and looking at this stuff. And I read a book recently. It's called That Wild Country, and by Mark Kenyon, I think is his last name. But he basically goes through a lot of the deep political stuff that had to happen for all this to work, and a lot of fight that happened to actually have this go through as like this huge swath of land that is for public use. And one of the things that they like, Theodore Roosevelt and others had to like kind of finagle is how to manage this stuff with the current infrastructure of the federal government. Where does this go? Right. And so then you get these funky relationships of like the, National Park Service is our National Forest Service is under agriculture, which is like, wait, what? Right. And then you got BLM, which is like the Department of the Interior. And you're like, wait, I thought they're all doing the same thing. And so it's weird. And you're like, you don't really know as a public owner of those things. And I don't think it really matters. What matters is just kind of the rules that you follow when you go there, and why those rules are in place, what access you have there, and what someone actually has to go through as far as like making that good for everybody. I think is the best like key part of that is it's free, but there is a cost, and you kind of have to negotiate that with your own like whatever your soul what you want to get out of that as far as do I want to fly a drone over the top of a campsite? Well, no, because it's noisy and it's annoying. So, okay, there's a trade-off, right? Can I ride my motorbike or my motorcycle all the way through, trails and things that aren't built for that? No, you can't do that, So there are these rules you got to follow, and I think that's fine. It's free, and there's fees if you stay longer than driving out for the day. But gosh, man, like I don't think there's a place that I've experienced that has just so much like really nice facilities for this kind of thing. And like you said, Alan, like at these times of when everybody's kind of inside and having to be kind of secluded, it's crazy how busy these places are. I went to Joshua Tree last weekend, and it was busier than I think I've ever seen it. And I've heard that across the country, just like when people are looking for an outlet, when they're looking to expand their horizons, get perspective, there's kind of this innate kind of part of us that just needs to get out to space and open area and look across the landscape, or just, breathe fresh air. I mean, not even make it out of the parking lot maybe and see flowers or something. That's totally fine. But I feel like there are these escapes that we need. And we're one of the few countries that actually foster that and realize that is a way for people to, make themselves better and feel better.
Yeah. It's an amazing resource.
Yeah.
So this is something I don't like to talk about, but I know that there's forces at work that want to. The term that they tend to use is they want to give it back to the people, give it back to the people, which
Right.
like we talked about, you already have it,
Right.
and you're there for your kids and your grandkids as well.
Right. Right.
There's this thing called the land transfer movement, which the pitch is, like I said, the it's pitched as, hey, these things are managed by the federal government. We should give them back to you.
Right.
To talk about, like, unpack that for a little bit, like, because it sure sounds cool, right?
Yeah, it does sound really cool. And there's like one group that really is hitting this head on is the Sustainable Trails Coalition. If you haven't gone onto their site and looked at what they do, they're a place that you can donate and get involved. But some very, very, very recent bills and things have tried to go through under this administration at the White House. And it typically does kind of ebb and flow between, and I don't like to get too political, but the voting lines have gone more Republican. Whenever there's Republican, control, things kind of, this stuff comes up a lot more often. When there's a Democrat in office, it kind of sways the other way, like Obama making this Snow to Sands monument around by us. That's this massive swath of land, and protecting that. Like, you'll see those things happen typically when a Democrat's in office. But that idea of the land transfer movement is basically giving it back to the states, essentially, and have the states controlling what that is, and how those things are protected. And kind of the dangerous part of that is the states don't really have the resources that the federal government has to enforce this. We see this even with this current virus breaking out, is like all the states are pleading to the federal government for funding because they don't have it. And so it's the same kind of thing with managing these lands, is that they don't have the money to basically, maintain these lands. And so what would happen is the states would basically have the control of these lands and not have to actually play by the same rules that they are today. So they could sell them back to private owners. And I don't know about you, but when things go into private owners, if it's not some sort of conservancy, if it's like a rancher or someone that wants to actually like extract from that land, they're going to close it off, and you're not going to be able to go there. And so not only can you not go there, but maybe they sell it back because it's served its use. You're going to get it at a very diminished quality of what it was before. It's going to be maybe mined. It's going to be gutted. There's probably not going to be trails anymore because you don't have people coming in to do that, right? You don't have people hiking through there. And so that use is going to be not really maintained as well. So as far as a trail user, there's a lot of things that are going to start breaking down if that does happen, where the federal government is under this Antiquities Act to actually maintain a certain level of preservation, Wilderness Act that goes so far as like you can't have mechanical things in the wilderness areas. And so that's gone kind of, I think, way too far in one direction as far as not allowing bikes. So that's kind of the Sustainable Trails Coalition gets into. Right. It's like that kind of like thing.
I did want to kind of clarify that, like that the STC is not the same as the land transfer movement.
No.
In that, like, they don't necessarily want to just kind of open the reins. There was a movement that kind of happened, I guess, with land managers where they stopped. They didn't allow bikes due to that like mechanical thing. But there's nothing like specifically in the law that says, or in the Wilderness Act that says you can't have bikes. Right. It was specific to mechanical stuff. It was before mountain bikes existed.
Right.
And their whole thing is about just kind of adding an amendment that says like that you will allow like hunting carts, and bikes and maybe strollers.
I think so.
Like so it's a little bit separate. I think the other thing that I find interesting Again, try not to get too political, but the whole like Republican and Democrat divide there, that it tends to go towards like, let's let the states manage it, versus the federal government managing it. Some of that, like, I understand the general concept of like, states are aware of their local stuff, and local management is good because the local people understand what they're doing. They know what's going on locally. But I think that resource thing is really important to keep in mind. But what I also find interesting is that public lands, we're talking also hunting and fishing, and we're also talking like overlanding and things like this.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about a bunch of, hippies necessarily, being like la la in the woods. We're talking like a lot of these other resources as well.
Yeah.
Which, if you're looking at that like red or blue divide, I don't think it really splits between the two. I think you have just as many people who are out there that want to like, I feel like getting out into the wilderness should not have anything to do with your political background or your political opinions.
Absolutely.
I think it's a very human thing.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we need as humans to like have these places available to us, and for generations down the road, because when we do stuff on the local level, we can also do stuff and in local time.
Right.
Meaning thinking about the next 5 to 10 years and what, because there's all kinds of like mineral resources and other kind of resources that you could very quickly make a lot of money.
Right.
Very quickly. And then now it's non-renewable. Now it's gone.
Yeah.
And one generation is going to profit off of that. And then that generation's kids is going to have a deteriorated experience, and on and on.
Right. Yeah, that's really key for sure. And I think like, that wealth of that resource goes only certain places, where right now it's dispersed among all of us. If it does go that way and things start getting sold as far as like resources and things from that, like it's only a few people are going to get wealthy from that. Like and a lot of us are going to lose. So, that's not like a scare tactic at all. I think that's like just kind of, for me, it's motivating, but for you, maybe it's just like, whatever, it's okay. But anyway, that's kind of the reality of it, as far as like what happens there.
So we're getting close to our time here. So I don't know if you can answer this question, but like, in terms of public lands, in terms of like preserving these places for us as mountain bikers, and more generally as lovers of the outdoors, is there like, what do you think like people, what's something somebody can do like now? What's something somebody can do over a long period?
I think one, you can look at, at a very personal level, try to figure out how to maintain something. That's the cheapest and easiest way. And I think like, it's not funny, but it's very cool. Like just seeing how like satisfying it is when you see people out there, like clearing stuff, and like, you look back and you're like, wow, that's cool. I take my son every once in a while to go do trail work, and, this hits me this is actually really, really emotional for me, but we're walking back from, doing trail work. And for him, that's like, he has these little scissors and he like clips little branches every once in a while. And like, but he's so pumped, and like, he'll throw like, all the shed off of, bushes and things that we cut, he'll throw it over the side. And he's 3 years old. But we're walking back once, and he's like, Dad, I just want to thank you for clearing the way for other people to use these trails. I was like, oh my gosh, dude. Like, wow. Yeah, they say they're steel traps, but like, man, that was his own thing. Like nobody said that, we maybe saw a few people ride by and they're just like, hey, thanks, but yeah, anyway, that's like that's the gratification that can come from it. Sometimes you donate to organizations, you vote a certain way, and it just kind of goes into the ether. And those things, sometimes bureaucracy is really hard to move, but if you hike a trail every day, if you go to a trail like every month or every whatever, and then you consider that your local trail, just start giving back and just start doing something, and you can see the effects of it, which is super cool. You're like, wow, I'm riding this, and that was something I did. Now it's a bridge instead of a goalie,
Yeah. And can I say, if I think, let me just jump in here because I think if unless you know how to dig, don't dig.
Yes. Very good point.
The one thing that like anybody can do, and I think your son is a great example of this, is you can clear brush.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
and there's lots of that. Yeah.
And as long as you're not like overdoing it,
right.
Take some, like, clippers are really easy to fit into your pack.
Yep.
Stop even just for a section and clip some branches.
Yeah.
You're not going to mess up the trail.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I remember you and I cleared there was like a tree that came down and there was so many branches.
Yes.
We were in there for a while. We were getting freaking lumberjack on that stuff. Yeah. And what's funny is remember the next time we rode it?
Yeah.
We were like, wait, where was that?
Exactly.
Where did we clear?
Yeah.
It like the idea being there is like, I shouldn't know.
Yeah.
I shouldn't know that you cleared it. If I suddenly start seeing like berms built up somewhere, that don't necessarily need to be there, or like, don't get me wrong, I love me some berms and some jump. But unless you're part of that trail crew, if you're trained, like I suggest, not digging, because you can cause like water problems, like water can come in.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, there's all that effort to build all those features. Like, you could have cleared probably a mile of trail and made so many more people stoked, including equestrians, hikers, hunters, everybody else, right?
And that's a huge point. A lot of our trails, they're mixed use,
right?
And I always try to keep that in mind.
Yeah,
this is great. We are in our last few minutes here.
Okay, cool.
I really appreciate this. I think we've covered some really cool stuff. Crew, if you have any questions, additional questions, hit me in the comments. But we are going to come to our exit exam.
Nice. I had fun with this.
So the exit exam is mountain biking. The imaginary organization in charge of mountain biking has asked you, Matt Palmer, to write the mountain biker license exam. So you have to pass this exam in order to be a licensed mountain biker.
Yes.
What 3 questions must be on the test?
Go. All right. My first one was pretty fun because I started using Strava right when it started coming out, and I saw just like the bat signals going up all over the place. People exactly. So my first one is, okay, imagine this. You're halfway down an 8-mile descent on a banner hero dirt kind of day, and Strava tells you that you're at a KOM pace. You're flying. You see someone broken down with a sliced sidewall, covered in stands, sitting with their head between their legs. What do you do? Okay, there's a good and bad answer here as far as the Imaginary Mountain Biking Society goes. I think you have to say stop if you're a mountain biker. And this is what I've experienced of definitely delineation between different type of biking groups is that one, there's someone stranded out in the middle of nowhere, right? So just as a human, you should do this. But the other part of it, I think, is that there's this kind of taking care of one another in the community kind of aspect as well that happens. And so you got to stop. You got to throw someone a tube, give them a dollar bill to patch up their sidewall and get them on their way. So that's the answer there.
I like it. I love it. I like that you provided the answer as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Am I supposed to do that?
I don't know. This is the first time we're doing this. So number 2.
Okay. If you can ride down a trail comfortably and keep up with your group on a drop bar bike, is it a mountain bike trail? I would say maybe.
Well, I think the term "comfortably" is key there. That's the operative term, because I know a guy in particular.
Yes.
You know him. You know Mark.
Yes.
He rides everything on his drop. It's a drop bar bike, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a drop bar bike, and he rides
gravel bike. Sorry.
It's a gravel. I think he had it before gravel was a thing.
I think so too. Yeah.
But it's basically like a kind of, I don't know. Anyway, but he rides that thing. He's ridden some gnarly stuff on that thing.
Yeah.
But comfortably, I think is the key word there.
Yeah. And I think there's there's a lot of trails that I know that are people go mountain biking on, and I just don't think that sometimes they warrant the bike that you buy to go ride those trails. You're on a full suspension crazy bike, riding on super smooth trails. I guess I'm trying to lower the bar to entry here a little bit for some people too. Is you can kind of do those on a lot of bikes, so you don't have to go buy the crazy bike. Now, if you're going over some crazy terrain and you're trying to keep safe and you want to go a little faster, that's not going to be a drop bar bike situation. It's going to be another bike.
Right.
So I think that's kind of more mountain biking, at least more rugged.
Yeah, I would agree. With that. So. I love this last one. It's so clean, so simple.
So I think you got to get all three of these right?
Okay.
Is that part of the exam, or what's the passing?
Yeah, I mean, in my imagination, there's like a 30 question exam, and you're being asked to write 10% of those questions.
Got it. Okay, cool. So you have a little bit of margin. Like if you get two of these wrong, you're out.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah.
So the last question I had is, what's a baby head? And I don't know if this is an official term for everybody, but anyway, that's something that I've heard people say, and they're more annoying, I think, than any other kind of feature if there's a ton of them. And it's just kind of giving the answer again, but it's it's really, really morbid. Maybe it's a baby doll head. Let's go there. But it's just the crown on the top of a little, right in the trail.
But
there's just a bunch of them.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you have to have a whole battalion of them in the ground, right?
Yeah.
What's funny is in my former mountain biking life in the early 2000s, I rode through a bunch. Yeah. And I had never heard the term before.
Yeah.
And I called them baby skulls.
It's it's so fitting. They're just so smooth, and you want to avoid them. You don't want to but yeah, a bunch of them can be a lot of chatter and not so fun. And they're hard to turn on. They're hard to do anything on other than just glide off of. So,
and setting up your suspension for them is out of the question.
That's right.
Cool, man. This has been really awesome. I really appreciate you doing this. Taking an hour plus out of your day.
For sure.
We had a little chat before this. So if you guys, crew, if you have any additional questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll see what I can do to answer them. I might have to refer to Matt or look stuff up. But yeah, this is if you're digging this format, if you think it's too long, too short, let me know. I'd love to hear what you've got to say about it. Generally, if you dig the video, hit the like button. Matt, do you have anything to say? Any exiting comments?
No,
20 seconds.
No, this is awesome. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, and always good to hang out. So even socially distanced like this.
Yeah, this is really just an excuse for me to chat with you, since we can't hang out.
That's exactly. So cool.
Yeah. So if you dug it, hit that like button. If you want to continue getting videos from the Airhorn channel, hit that subscribe button. I'll show up in your feed, and you will be supporting the channel. See you next week.